Okay, so now that we learned how we can record our voices for our podcasts, we're going to move into how we can edit. And let me start by saying that you don't need to edit your podcast if you don't want to. If you're satisfied with your product and you did it all in one recording instead of little pieces of recordings, you can certainly just go ahead and email it and share it to me directly. You don't have to do any of the editing pieces. But if you want to add sound effects or music, or you want to piece together an interview, this is a tutorial for you because we're going to show some editing. So let's start by going into my email to check out that example recording. Here we are. Now you're going to see the example here, and I'm just going to click on the arrow to download it. You can see it pops right up into those downloads over here. And so when I do that, I can actually see my example showed up right there. So once I've downloaded all of my sound bites, I'm going to go ahead and open up an app for editing. Now, my preferred app for editing is actually Imovie. You don't have to have visuals to use Imovie, so you can just record sound if you want to. And that's what I'm going to do for today. Now, some of you are doing vlogging where you're actually going to record a video and have visuals, and that's just fine too. I'm going to give you a list of different editing devices you can use. Imovie is obviously just exclusive to Apple computers and products, but there's a ton of free places where you can go and edit. So I'm going to go ahead and get into Imovie. The screen's going to pop up to create something new. I'm going to create a new movie. And then I'm going to go straight up here to audio, just so that I'm all set and ready to go. Now let's test this out a little bit. I'm going to go back to my email where I have my example, and I'm just going to drag and drop into Imovie. Nice and simple. It'll take a couple seconds for it to actually pop up on the screen, but it will be in there. Now, I can also go over to my audio and find it within my audio. So looks like it didn't drop. There we go. Sometimes you have to actually see it in there to see the drop. Okay, so now I should be able to play my sound bite that I recorded on my phone. This is a test. Okay, great, it recorded. Now, what I want you to notice on this is this little yellow part, and where you can see this little line, and then all of a sudden you see it kind of hike up there. Anything that's just at this little line where there's not much going on is just dead air. So I'll play it for you so you can hear it. And once you see this yellow kind of pop up there, you can see that's where my voice is going to start. So what I'm going to do to edit is just pull on this and close that gap. And then I'll scooch it over here. So now when I click on it, this is a test. My voice, there's no dead air. My voice just starts right at the top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this sound clip. But what I would recommend doing before you even start your podcasting is to play around with this. Same thing with the audio recorder. You want to kind of do a couple tests and do something short to make sure you know what you're doing and you don't have any questions. So now that I'm all done with that, I'm going to start to pull the things that I downloaded in. So I'm going to start, I labeled my first piece greeting. So I'm going to pull my greeting in here. And let's see how it sounds. Again, I see all that dead space. So I'm going to click here, and Kathy is joining us today. There we go. Kathy is joining us today. Now I can add some music. So over here in this column, I'm going to go to sound effects because all of that music and all of the sound effects are able to be posted onto YouTube and can be shared. So I'm just going to go down to jingles and choose a jingle. Okay, perfect. I'm going to choose that jingle and I'm just going to slide that in before my actual words. Whoops. Now I actually didn't slide it in the right spot. So all I'm going to do is undo my connect. Now I'm going to hover it over, whoops, to put it before. I might have to move this a little. The important thing is to just kind of play around with things because it might not go perfectly at the beginning, but everything that you do can be undone, which is nice. Okay, now it's slid in there. I'm going to kind of take a little, 12 seconds is a lot of music to start the show, so I'm just gonna take it down to maybe 5 seconds. And again, this is everything I can play around with and move when I need to. So here's my short. There's my music. And now you're going to see this gray space is going to be dead sound. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to actually shorten it up a little bit more. And then I'm going to grab onto my greeting so that it's right there. Let's try that. Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so there is my greeting, and now I need my person's response. So Kathy greeted me after I said thank you for joining us today. I'm going to slide her part in today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, please notice that Kathy was not anywhere near me. She was just recording from her own spot, and it is going to be in little bits. Okay, so once I'm done with my greeting, I'm going to ask my first question. So I'm just going to slide my first question in. Again, I can see all that dead space there. So I'm going to move here and move it over. And okay. Kathy, can you tell us some of the benefits of using school uniforms? Okay, so there's my question. Now, Kathy was super great. She just answered each one of my questions in a single soundbite. And so she labeled hers answer 1 to my question 1. So, whoops, and I lost my iMovie. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is grab answer 1 and pop it right next to question 1. So let's see how it sounds. Uniforms?
Well, I think one benefit is that there's no competition among students. Everybody looks the same. Nobody's clothes are trendier or more expensive than anybody else's. And I think that's a good thing. I think it avoids distractions when students are learning. I think that it makes it less complicated for students to decide what to wear in a day.
I'm going to pause it right there. She goes on to say a couple more things, but I just want you to notice how easy that was to do from 2 different areas. All she had to do was send in, okay, answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, and they're all ready to kind of plug in there. Now let's go to sound effects. You can, in the same thing with sound effects, you can go through, they're all labeled. So there's ambience, there's animals. So if I want to include an animal noise or maybe a spring, an alarm bell, a volcano erupting, any of those things, I can kind of look through here and see what might be an applicable sound effect. So for me, right now I probably don't need a sound effect in what I've done so far, but I'm going to click on one. Let's do some suspense. And I'm going to pop the suspense. Whoops. I'm going to put it right in between her question and answer. And 31 seconds of suspense is too much for a podcast. So I'm going to majorly cut this down. So I'm just going to grab it and cut it. Now I'm at 18 seconds. You can see over here 11 seconds. I really don't want that much. I just need maybe 3 seconds. So I'll scooch all the way over here for about 2.4. Now, again, all that gray is going to be dead space. So now I need to put this right next to what I've been doing. Whoop. There it is. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so we'll hit the question again, then you'll hear the sound effect, and then we'll go into the answer.
Kathy, can you tell us some of the benefits of using school uniforms?
Well, I think one benefit.
Okay, so I probably wouldn't keep that in real life, but I just wanted to give that example to you. So this is how to use iMovie to make your soundbite. Once you're done with it, you're going to go ahead up to File, and you're going to click Share. And to share the file, you could email it to me directly, but I think a better idea is making a file. And so you're going to click on File, and at that point, it's going to have My Movie 10. I don't want that in there. I'm going to title my podcast, and then I'm going to click Next. Now it says video audio. Well, I don't have any video, so I can just do audio if I want to. And then I click Next, and it's going to go ahead and save it to my files here. So I'm just going to click Save to the desktop, and it's going to go ahead over there and make a file. At that point, I can do anything with my file. I can email it to my teacher. I'm going to show you in a different video how you can just put it directly into our podcast channel. But overall, I hope this was helpful to show you some editing. You don't have to edit in iMovie. This is just something that I like to use. And I just wanted to show you how simple it can be to add those sound effects. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. We can video chat. Obviously, I can share my screen with you so that we can work on something together, but don't feel like you're alone in trying to do this. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and remember, go ahead and play around with these features as much as you can before you actually do your product. Have a great afternoon.